Lightyear Entertainment, folks, the people who brought you The Return of Swamp Thing. Hi, I'm Jim Wynorski. I'm the director of the film that you're about to see. It was produced in 1988 by Lightyear, and two of the finest producers I've ever worked with, Michael Uslan and Benjamin Melniker, and who also produced Batman and all the sequels. This film was shot in Savannah, Georgia, and in the actual swamps. If you listen closely here, you can hear Chuck Serino, the composer, do kind of a riff on Once Upon a Time in the West by Morricone. But this is actually in a swamp in Savannah, Georgia. We went down there and put a lot of dry ice in the water, and they actually came in a day before and fenced off the swamp and went through and tried to kill all the alligators that were actually running around the swamp. In fact, there are off-screen guys with guns trained on the water just beyond the camera range in case any gators tried to get into the fenced area where we were shooting. And if you don't think that's scary, well, it is. We were out there in the evening through the night wearing waders, and at one point I looked over and I saw a big, what looked like a tail light in the water reflecting back from one of the Klieg lights. And I said, "What's that? It looks like a car." And he says, No, that's an alligator eye. And I said, "Oh my God." So you're walking around the swamp just like these guys, half in the water, and you hit a branch or something beneath the water, and whoa, you'd like jump out of the water because it's so scary. You think you've hit something alive. Anyway, it was very nasty. There was about 1 million bugs, lots of snakes. We had to bring the Moscow lights down, which are these big Klieg lights which we put up in the sky. We had to bring them down every couple of hours because a lot of wasps and moths and all kinds of swamp bugs would impale themselves on the light and just burn. And finally, it would get so thick it would cut down on our light. So we had to come down. They had to come down with the light every couple of hours and brush these thousands of bugs off. These fellas. These revenuers are played by Bill Udaley, Jourdan Ferguson, Jim Grimshaw, and Anthony Sears. Anthony Sears plays the lead guy here, Dugan, who's going to go take the wrong direction. The one guy who doesn't talk, I don't remember his name because it's been 14 years, but Lightyear only wanted to pay for 4 guys to talk, and they said, well, get an extra to play the other guy. So I can't tell you his name. However, it was nasty. Lots of humidity, and you were cold and hot at the same time. And I think I put that line somewhere in the dialogue because it was so horrible down there. All the stunts in this film, like the one you're about to see, were done by a very fine stuntman and his team, Tony Caesar, and who had worked with me on 976 Evil 2. Just a couple of months before. We built this sort of like weird camera rig, a box that could be submersed in water, and we put the camera in there, and it would be watertight, and we got it down at water level for a lot of different scenes. And we tied this guy's legs up with wires and pulled the stuntman down under the water. It was kind of effective. That's Anthony Sears with the glasses on, and next to him is, with the crazy hat on, is Jourdan Ferguson. If you've ever seen a movie made in the South, it probably has Jourdan Ferguson in it. He is a very fine character actor who is who lives down in that area, and I think he made at least 50, 60 films. He's been in a lot of great ones, and he's also in this one. We couldn't get this hat to float. We had to put like a balloon or something inside this hat because it kept sinking in the water. And again, the dry ice budget was huge. We were continually throwing dry ice in this lake bed or this swamp bed. And there it is, the first appearance of Leech Band. This is before the age of digital effects, folks, so we were just living with monsters in reality. And There he is, Jourdan Ferguson saying, "Shoot that thing," which became kind of the motto of the whole show. This was shot pretty much early on in the film, and "shoot that thing" was the credo of the entire crew for the whole shoot, which was a pretty long and arduous, very hot and humid 24 days. These guys were mighty glad to get out of the swamp water. It was pretty nasty, as was I. I think this was the end of the first night right there. We got him out of the water, and this, I think, picked up night 2. And this was the first appearance of Dick DeRock, who had played Swamp Thing in the Wes Craven movie, which was the first Swamp Thing adventure. And he came back in this one with a, what I thought, a better suit. That's Monique Gabrielle, fine actress who I'd worked with a number of times before this picture, in Deathstalker 2 and a couple of other films, Transylvania Twist and Not of This Earth. And she did a very fine job in this movie, playing kind of a James Bondian villainess. I had to admire Dick DeRock because this suit must have weighed at least 50 or 60 pounds. And it was all foam rubber, and you'd put this thing on, and you had nowhere to breathe. Your skin couldn't breathe. You had to breathe through your nose, and this guy, who was so muscular and so strong, he was out there doing all these very, very strenuous fight scenes. Here he comes now. He's about to be go to the rescue of this gentleman. There he is. And this suit, again, 50, 60 pounds of foam rubber and all kinds of paint, and there was nothing. You couldn't even go to the bathroom when you had this thing on. You had to just kind of hold it because there was no way out of it. And he put in a lot of hours, Dick, doing all this fighting and stuff, and he'd take this thing off and he would be sweating from head to toe. Frankly, I don't know how he did it. It was a real tough job. But no other person could have played Swamp Thing like Dick. There's Chuck Serino's Swamp Thing theme again. Sort of like another tribute to Ennio Morricone. The one thing that Lightyear didn't like was Dick's voice, so they revoiced him somewhere after I had left the film. I don't know who they used, but they sure should have used Dick's voice because he had a good voice and he did a nice job in the acting department. But I guess someone at the top said we'd have to change it. I just don't remember who they got. One of the nice things of doing this film was this main title sequence. I was able to go get a number of comic book covers from DC, and we took them and we cut them all up and made ourselves a kind of real fun opening title sequence. I'd always been a fan of the Swamp Thing comics, and I thought some of the artwork that had adorned the covers was some of the best ever. Bernie Wrightson and a number of other fine artists really did some of their finest work on this character. And I always liked the opportunity here of using the real comic book covers as our main title sequence. And there's Dick's name. He's a retired now, but I still see him around. He appears at science fiction conventions and other Hollywood functions. Leslie Rosenthal worked with me at my days at Roger Corman's Concord. And Steve Neal had worked on the first thing I'd ever worked on back when I first came to L.A. It was a pilot called Starstruck. It's kind of like a Star Warsian thing. Rob Wilson King, you've seen his work zillions of times in much bigger films than this. He had a good time kind of working on this show because it was a fun outing for him. He wanted to do something different. Charles Mitchell, I don't know what happened to Chuck Mitchell, but Tom Kuhn has now become another big-time producer out here in Hollywood, and I see him occasionally. He's still going strong. Ben and Michael, just wonderful guys. And there I am. This was the first day of shooting again. We kind of split the day and started in the daytime, and then worked our way into the evening. This is Heather Locklear's first appearance in the picture. I don't know who came up with this goo idea, but in the original script, she was supposed to talk to flowers and be kind of like enamored with plants. I felt it was a little weird, but everybody seemed to like it, so I shot it, and we put all the names of the producers on the flower pots, and so they sort of got their names in the film without giving too much away. And also, the lady at the TV was an extra, and they had just sent her over just to sort of be in the background at the flower store. And I said, "Oh, she should be the assistant here at the flower store." So we put her in front of the TV, and it kind of gave Heather someone to talk to. Heather Locklear was one of the sweetest people I ever worked with. She's a very good actress, and she did a fine job in this movie. She even was willing to parody herself here by the T.J. Hooker joke that she delivers here. And she did a really nice job. She had never done anything like this before, and I don't think she's ever done it again, but this was kind of a fun thing for her. Her husband then, Tommy Lee, came down to the set, and on weekends when we had time off, everybody would go out partying and drinking and having a good time. This was a big house in, I believe it was outside of the outskirts of Savannah, and it was sort of like a museum. And Rob Wilson King built the entire facade of the house out in the front, on the side of the museum, and made it look like the front of a house. This house is, of course, not inside there. It is somewhere else in Savannah. And now we're in a set which was built in I can't think of a truck or a motor hangar somewhere out in the outskirts of Savannah again. It was a pretty big place, and it was one of the hottest places I've ever been. And the humidity was tremendous. You'd go in there, you'd sweat immediately. But we got through it. It was the toughest part of the movie to shoot. It was down in this, inside this strange, cavernous comic book mad scientist lab. These were all his weird mutations. Some of them kind of worked, some of them didn't. But after working with the very low budgets of Roger Corman, this was a very big budget, and I was able to actually go back for a wide shot occasionally like this and show the place off. There were zillions of bugs and lizards and things living in this motor hangar, and they made this set their home for about a week while we were shooting in this building. That's Ace Bask, the guy with the mustache there. Not this guy, but the guy standing up in the blue uniform. He's been in a number of my pictures. Always plays a kind of a crazy doctor or a scientist. In this film, he plays a character named Dr. Rochelle, which is the same name of a character he'd played about 6 months earlier in another film I did with Tracy Lords called Not of This Earth. So when he came down to play this part, I renamed the character Dr. Rochelle because he had just played that character. So I thought it was kind of a cool thing to bridge the two characters and have them play the same role. Although this character himself is just a little bit crazier than the Dr. Rochelle from Not of This Earth. Louis Jourdan, let me tell you about Louis Jourdan. He's a fantastic actor. He's been in so many big films, Gigi and all these other pictures, and he was kind of tough to deal with. He was he brought a lot of baggage from MGM and the big shows, and again, this was not a big show in his mind, and he had just come off the James Bond picture. And it was a little difficult working with him, but we got along. Sarah Douglas, a real trooper. She had been in Superman 1 and 2 and a number of other pictures, and she was, hired to play the villainous love interest for Louis Jourdan and did a spectacular job. A lot of the actors we pulled from down there in Savannah. One of them was this gentleman on your left, Ralph Pace. I believe this is his last film. I don't know whether he retired or passed away, but he was quite funny when he came in, and we hired him on the spot. And he came in, did just a fine job as the bumbling county sheriff. I checked his credits on the Internet Movie Database a couple of days ago before I came in to do the commentary, and I couldn't find another credit for him after 1988 or this picture. Maybe just retired. Hopefully, he's still around. That lurking bad guy with the goatee and the mustache in the background is actor Joey Segal, who you might remember from The Hidden. He's the guy that Claudia Christian kills in the car once she's turned into an alien. He did a number of good auditions for the producers, and he had this very, very snickering laugh. And that's why we hired him. Taxi cab driver was our unit liaison production person. His name is Al Cooper, and he was always just up and happy. And I said, Al, why don't you play the taxi driver? And he says, I've never been an actor, but he just jumped right in and did this scene as if he'd been in front of the camera all his life.
Tell me, was there any evidence of swamp mud found on this man?
Why, he's covered with it.
And now we're back with Ralph and Louis.
Probably lost their way, fell into the bog, and all died, except for doing.
You know, Doc, that makes sense.
This house that they're in was a very famous house in Savannah, Georgia. It was supposedly haunted, and they let us film there. I never saw a ghost while I was there, but it had a very creepy feel about it. It was had all this old antique furniture, and it was kept up very well. And but at night, after we finished filming, it did have a kind of very, very creepy, haunted mansion, Disney-esque kind of feel to it. You didn't want to stay there alone.
Comb it again, and remember, you're not looking for a human being, you're looking for a plant.
Louis always wanted to do things in one take. He just didn't. He hated coverage. He would love to do it all just in one take. So I did that as much as I could with Louis. A little continuity error. That little piece of yellow paper always disappears. It always bothered me, but I think we had only a certain amount of coverage on this, and I didn't want to waste the time with him taking that yellow piece of paper off the dash, so we just made it kind of disappear. Now, this, again, this house is had all this antique furniture. We were the owners, or not the owners, but I think the state owned it, and they let us in there with the proviso that we don't break anything or touch anything. And I and the producers were both worried that somebody was going to take a light stand or something and break a window or break an antique, but it didn't happen.
Have a blood sample taken from her.
How do we do that?
We'll find a way. Lana, I want you to make sure that Abigail is taken care of beautifully. She must be considered as our prized possession.
We had a lot of inexperienced people working for us who were very enthusiastic, however. And I remember we had one PA, and we had to have Heather Locklear seem as tall as Louis. Louis is very tall, and when they walk up here, I had to build a little bridge for her to walk on, so that she seemed a little taller than she was. So I called in the Hollywood, we have a thing called an apple box, which is something you stand on, and sometimes it's too tall, and you have what they call a half apple. So at one point I just yelled, "Get me a half apple for Heather," and about 6 people came back with actual apples cut in half on a silver platter with a doily, and gave it to Heather. And I said, "Well, there you go. There's 6 half apples for Heather." But they were very nice and very enthusiastic, and the people of Savannah were just wonderful while we were shooting there. Two of the people I'd like to thank, when we have a moment here just while they're talking, are 2 of the friends of mine who helped me rewrite some of the script. And that was Steve Mitchell, who wrote Against the Law and Chopping Mall for me. And also good friend John Terlesky, who now is directing movies himself, also came in to rewrite some of the scenes with the 2 kids that were all changed from the original script. And both of them did a fabulous job punching up some of the dialogue and making it play a little bit better. The place, as you see it here, is again a house in Savannah. Very nice house that was. Everybody had to go around on tiptoe because everybody was afraid to knock over a vase. They even had an organ in this place, which they allowed me to play a couple of times and use Louis at the organ, sort of doing his mad scientist thing. I think it shows up later on in the movie. Sarah looks very sexy here. She was always trying to outdo Heather a little bit, and I think they make a good contrast together. One of the things Lightyear that didn't give me on this film was a crane, okay? So I used a little thing they used to raise lights up to put my camera on, and I got this little crane shot that takes us up from the first floor to the second floor. Lightyear, however, did give me a lot of free reign on this picture, and they were very nice and really did a nice job in producing the film. Chuck Minchell, Tom Kuhn, there's also a guy in New York named Arnie Holland who shares a namesake with the lead character in this movie, who's also named Holland.
You're not showing any signs yet, are you?
Different texture, maybe.
We'll find a way to reverse the aging. I won't let anything happen to you, my darling.
But as all, little low-budget pictures, you must make a concession here or there, and one of them was this painting on the wall. It wasn't a very good painting of Louis, but we had to use it. I think it was painted the night before by an artist who just was a little too rushed. So later on in effects, we gave it sort of like again, a Disney Haunted Mansion effect. And I think it worked out fine. So we had all our rain towers, and we also went out to a place called Uncle Shed's. This is a real place. I don't think they had that sign, but I think they kept the sign after we left. It was a fishing cabin village out in the middle of this incredible vast swamp, and you had to drive through at least a half an hour's worth of swamp to get there. This fine little gentleman here is a guy named Daniel Taylor, making his film debut in this picture. He's all of 8 years old, and was just a natural. He would, as soon as you turn the camera on, he started mugging. And we looked at a lot of kids, and we found him, and I just said, man, this kid is going to be the cute scene in the picture. And he was sort of like to me, he was like a young John Candy. The fellow he's talking to is another smart aleck kid named Ronrico Lee. And these guys were like the Laurel and Hardy of Return to Swamp Thing. They were fantastic. They were willing to do almost anything I asked them to do and try to make it good. Ronrico actually is enjoying a career. He's still acting. He just did a movie called, I believe, Jacked. He's must be about 20, 22, 23. And he's doing very good. Daniel has lost all the weight, and he himself is was last seen in a film called Road Trip, which was made down in Alabama. And so he's still acting. So I feel I started them both. This was a scene that was hard to do. Every kid wants to break into his dad's Playboys. And I figured while the parents were out, these kids would want to sneak into dad's Playboys. And the trouble was getting all these men's magazines where I didn't have any nudity showing because it was a family movie. And so we had to really look carefully and paste pages together to make sure we never saw any nudity. And these kids who were big Swamp Thing fans, and they just loved being out there with Dick DeRock and getting their picture taken with Swamp Thing. And all the rain and explosions and fighting and everything else, they were and staying up all night. They felt like they had gone to heaven, and they were so good at doing these little takes with each other. And again, this Rob Wilson King built this entire house out there in the middle of Uncle Shed's, and painted it, made it our actual building. And we had about 7 or 8 rain towers that Bob Shelley, a special effects guy, had set up. So every time I held action, there would be rain, lightning, thunder. It was pretty amazing. This fight scene took practically all night to shoot because of all the logistics. We had explosions, we had big fire scenes, and we had to make sure the kids were protected. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Leechman was played by a stuntman named Chris Doyle, who was doing a lot of amazing stunts at the time. We bought all these cars with the express purpose of blowing them up and breaking them up, and Dick and Chris did an amazing job of fighting with all this, rubber and masks and rain, and they were just sort of bogged down. When we did that explosion there, we just blew the hell out of this place. The kids didn't want to go away. The kids wanted to stay and see it, so we let them. We were protecting them as much as possible, but they kept saying, "Well, we want to see it explode." So I think the kid in me wanted to see it all explode too. I said, "As long as we built it, we're going to blow it." And so a lot of these reactions I just filmed on the kids were just what they were thinking and what they were saying at the time. Little Daniel has a great line here, which is he just ad-libbed. He says, "I think that green guy's good." And I said, "Oh, I got to keep that." Because I just would turn the camera on and let them go. And
I think that green dude's good.
they would just make up stuff. And I said, "Well, I couldn't write it as good as that." So we took this wonderful little photo of them not trying to give away Swamp Thing's identity. And excuse me, folks, I had a little sip of Coca-Cola. And now we're back at the house, and it's not time for talk. Monique looks sensational there. And this footage, believe it or not, was shot in the Philippines. All this helicopter with the explosion in the water was done in the Philippines. This was done back in Savannah. And but I just wanted to open it up a little bit more than the ATVs. And so we shot these, I think, believe it or not, the associate producer, Nitzel Rillo, shot some of this as background stock footage, and she did a nice job. Again, this is also the Philippines, the boat in the water there. They're all supposed to be looking for a Swamp Thing. And when we got to shooting the sequence, it was just a little small. So we went to Roger Corman, who had made a lot of films in the Philippines, and I knew everything that was there. And I said, well, why don't we use some footage from this? And he allowed us to use it.
Perhaps this visit will bring us close.
Heather looks nothing short of sensational in this film. Every time you see her, she's got something great on. And I remember just going to in Savannah. There's a big pier, and we go down there, and they'd have these buckets of shrimp and champagne, and a whole slew of us would always go down there after work and go to these places and listen to music and eat Cajun shrimp, and it was just about the best you could imagine. The whole town wanted to get a glimpse of Heather because she was so famous at the time. And I just remember that one night with we were making kind of a loud racket, and the cops came, and when they saw who it was, they just we all got in the cop car, and they gave us a tour of Savannah or something, and nobody ever got taken to the Hoosgow on this film, even though probably a few of us deserved it because we were just making such a racket all the time. We basically took over 2 hotels, and there was loud music and playtime every night after work if we were shooting days. And if we were shooting nights, there'd be loud music and playtime during the day, because I don't think anybody ever slept on this show. Everybody used Sunday, which was our day off, to do their laundry at the local laundromat. So, except for Louie, everybody'd be in the laundromat around 1 o'clock in the afternoon after they had brunch, doing their laundry for the week. It was kind of crazy to see all the stars and just the actors and the crew all together in the local laundromat in Savannah, which there was only one of, doing their clothes. It's Cleavage Central here at the Savannah Mansion, and again, Sarah Douglas fighting for the Cleavage Award. It's a magazine you don't see on every newsstand, but I thought it worked well. Monique Gabrielle, who is staying with Joey Segal here, had been recommended to me by a good friend named Bob Greenberg, and I talked with her on the phone a couple times several years before Swamp Thing, and I kind of got to like her, and over the phone, and we met, and she told me she had been in Bachelor Party, and she was the Tom Hanks dream girl in Bachelor Party. And then I saw that film. I said, oh my God, I got to meet this girl. I'm talking to her on the phone. Anyway, we met, and I brought her with me to Argentina to make Deathstalker 2, which was her first leading role. And then I put her in a small but comedic role in Not of This Earth. Then when I made this picture, of course we needed Heather Locklear in the lead, but I gave her the role of Miss Poinsettia. And she did a fantastic job in this film. These two guys, Clyde and Gerdell, two kind of inbred, Hills Have Eyes type guys, were played by Tim Birch there, the blonde guy, and Alex Van, the guy with the yellow hat. Actually, they both have yellow hats, but the guy with the yellow T-shirt is Alex Van. Alex Van has had a kind of a career. He's done a lot of films. I don't believe Tim Birch pursued acting after this, but he did a nice job anyway. This whole set here, the still set, was created by Rob Wilson King out of nothing. And when I got there that night and saw how well it was constructed, I said, oh my God, we got a beautiful still set here. Let's get a couple shots. And I kind of altered the dialogue. And they were just practicing and having a damn fine time. Rob Wilson King, again, at his finest here, doing sort of like a Disney-esque version of the South. This dialogue was kind of fun from the original script. I never found out who actually wrote this script. It was there were two fake names on it, and no one ever really fessed up to who actually wrote it. I did a lot of rewriting on it because of location changes and character changes, and as I said, Steve Mitchell and John Treleski helped me work on it too. We didn't have a shot of Swamp Thing coming into the scene, so it didn't work. So we used this other reverse shot from when he first appeared, and there it is. And we had to use it. And we didn't want him to kill anybody, so we just had him kind of take care of these people without too much ado. I didn't want him to kill a hillbilly. Hillbillies are good. So anyway. They take off, and now it's time for a little romance. And you can hear Chuck Sereno's music just sort of kick in here and kind of create a mood. And by this time, Heather had become very used to Dick DeRock and the outfit. So it wasn't like she was talking to a guy in a suit. She had just sort of like come used to it, and she played it very, natural, and Dick was sort of happy to go along with it, and he kind of did a nice work with her too. I just wish they had kept his original voice, because he did some nice, audio work too.
You gotta be kidding. This is for real? I don't understand. How can that be?
If I tell you about our king, you'll understand.
They wanted to reference the first film, so they bought some footage from the original Wes Craven Swamp Thing, which shows up here. So I tried to use all the action footage without showing anybody's faces. I think Nicholas Worth is seen here briefly. But Ray Wise and all the people from the first film are sort of kept under wraps. There's Louis and Nick Worth. This was a pretty spectacular stunt from the first one, which was shot in Louisiana, I believe, and not in Georgia.
Your stepfather found me, and I killed him. Or so I thought.
I don't know if they've released it again since this time, but I was amused to hear that Swamp Thing, the original one, was just recalled by MGM-UA because they accidentally put out the international edition, which had a lot of Adrienne Barbeau nudity in it. Some mother in Texas went ballistic when her kid put on Swamp Thing, and suddenly MGM had to recall all their DVDs. It's kind of a shock to the system, I guess, and I think those rare few that got out are selling for big bucks on eBay. That's Kevin Schmidt, who was the production liaison. We gave him a line in the picture. There's the this big action scene was shot along a little trail of swamp very near Uncle Shed's. And when Swamp Thing goes in the water here, we had to make sure that he didn't actually sink in, because it was like almost like quicksand out there. And we had a few people walk in there and have difficulty getting out. So he put down some plastic there so that he wouldn't sink. And thanks to Leslie Rosenthal here, he explodes in a big ball of flame there. We had a mock Swamp Thing put in there, and then we blew it up and matched the same location. She sort of did a little sweet edit there that made it all look like it was all happening at once. Lightyear, after they saw the print, wanted to make sure that the audience knew that Swampy was not dead. And even though we shot this here in Savannah, this next shot is shot in Malibu Creek, in Los Angeles. That's Mark Persley on the right there. He was the assistant editor. And we went out to the Malibu Creek here in Los Angeles and shot this little scene here where we actually saw a bit of Swampy crack light up and go under the water, so we knew that Swampy wasn't dead. I don't know why they wanted it, but they wanted it, so we went and shot it. There's one of Rob Wilson King's great mad laboratory scenes. He built this great machine that had these chairs that would transfer energy from one body to another. This was a case where Louis wanted to keep the take as a oneer, but it was so long, I had to kind of fight him on it and make sure that he did it all with close-ups and things, because it was just too long to stay in a oneer.
Worked with us, and her death was the unfortunate side effect of our mutual experiments. Her genetic code was perfect, just like yours, by the way.
You're mad!
I never felt saner.
I never felt saner. That's another line that Louis actually came up with on the set, and I said, well, that's very ingenious. Let's use that. And I also have to credit the effects guys here. Again, this is all pre-digital and CGI. And I had used an effects company called Motion Opticals on some of my earlier shows like Chopping Mall and Big Bad Mama 2. And a good fellow named Jim Stewart and a friend of mine, Linda Oberlil, ran the company, and they did all the effects for this movie. One of the employees of Motion Opticals at the time was Kevin Kuchaver, who later went on to form Flat Earth Productions and do all the effects for Hercules and Xena. And he's also a good friend of mine. Louis in his silk pajamas. What could be more attractive? Anyway, the reason we did the inhaler in Ace's scenes all the time, there's a big scene at the end, and I need to make sure that the audience would know exactly who the monster was. So we gave him this inhaler to seal the deal throughout the whole picture. There's another Rob Wilson King special. He built this entire pond and everything outside of the house. And we pulled this gloppy goo into the pipes from off camera. And then Jim and Kevin and Linda put all the special effects on it later. Again, this was way before CGI, so this was all done with sort of cartoon rotoscoping. But genuinely effective for this comic book type of film. Of course, this is where Sarah Douglas learns that even she is expendable. Despite her love for Louis here, he's willing to sell her down the river. to get what he needs, which is a sort of a rejuvenation formula. The same thing he was looking for in part 1. And since I didn't think there'd be a part 3, we said, well, we'll take care of him at the end of this one. But leave it open enough so if they did ever do part 3, and he still could be resurrected. This scene here, we had to cut the jail bars so I could get a better close-up. And as you can see, we sort of hacksawed them so that I wasn't looking through jail bars. I didn't want to disturb her close-up with some jail bars. We figured no one would mind or care. She's so tiny, she probably could fit through that hole, but we figured this was a scene with her and Joey sort of like sparring verbally, and we let it go, had a good time. Joey was, even though he's playing a creep, he's a very, very sweet guy, nice guy. His father was, actually his sister is Katie Seagal, who was on the Married with Children show for a long time. She played the wife on Peg Bundy on that show. This shower was on a set because we had to have all this green goo come into the through the pipes in the bathtub. So it's sort of a patio tub. I don't know what you'd call it. But again, Rob King did an incredible job creating images here. Of course, we had all this stuff. He was sort of mixing with 2 different pipes on the other side and adding the cartoon sparkles and everything at the because we had to create Swamp Thing from the idea of Swamp Thing coming up through the pipes. And Chuck Serino here is going absolutely out of his mind with this, creating this sort of like fugue. He's a terrific composer. Now he's directing and producing his own shows, but at this time he was composing quite a lot of music for myself and Fred Olin Ray and a number of other people. He was, sometimes doing 12, 13 scores a year. This was one of his best, and he created quite a nice atmosphere. Let me also say something about the director of photography on the show, Jourdan Hochstetter. Jourdan was a Hungarian who I met a year before when I did Not of This Earth. And I only had 12 days to shoot that show. And I was also working with Tracy Lords, who had never really acted in a real movie before. And I needed someone to make it look good and make it look good fast. And Jourdan did an incredible job with that 12-day show that when I got this, I took him along, and he went along and did an incredible job lighting this all these sets and things. He ended up shooting about 12 to 14 movies for me over the course of the last 12, 13 years. Now he's returned back to Yugoslavia and is shooting commercials there. I also believe he's working in the feature industry there too, but his heart was always in Europe. But he did some incredible work for me here.
Where you going now? Don't leave me! We're just starting! Hurry up.
Again, this elevator was built in 2 places. It was built at the Mad Lab, and then it was also taken apart and reconstructed in a hallway in this house that we rented in Savannah.
Take it. Parked right outside.
One of the strange things about movie making here is that you can stretch a small piece of property and make it into a quarter of a mile long if you want to. The distance between the porch of this house and the gate could have been more than 25, 30 yards. But when Swamp Thing and Heather Locklear take off for from the front of the house to get to the gate, I think they must travel at least a quarter of a mile of screen time, where they're shooting and bombs are going off. And we shot it from a number of different camera angles and turned it into quite an exciting chase sequence. There's Tony Caesar right there. He's the stunt coordinator. That's Rex Pearson next to him. And he later plays the mutated Rochelle creature, which you'll see later in the picture. Tony's not an actor, so we had to loop him here. He was couldn't say the line correctly, so we had to have somebody loop him. Rex takes it right in the chin there, and here comes the chase. The chase is on, a couple of punches, and Louis is upset. And again, this is a car chase where we had to stretch it out. We only had about 25, 35 yards between the front of the house and the gate. But as you can see, we're about to go a quarter mile here. We had the camera mounted to the front of the Jeep, and just again, this took I think half a night to shoot. That was Michael Uslan going by there. If you're on your DV, you can frame it back. The guy with the glasses and the mustache who first runs in that one shot where they're in the house. That was Michael Uslan, who produced Batman. I don't think Ben ever made it into the picture. Again, it's still a long road to the front gate. Finally. I have to thank Leslie Rosenthal, my editor, for using almost every piece of footage I shot that night and creating that little editorial extravaganza.
Oh, gross!
Hold it. Give me your knife.
I think this was like some toothpaste that we tinted green or something, and then we put some grass or something on it. It wasn't too creative, but it worked. Anyway, here come the kids again. I always put my place in the place of the kids in these movies, and I say, what would I do if I was a real kid in this movie? And of course, the first thing you'd want to do if you were a kid, you'd want to get a shot of this thing and try to sell it to the Inquirer or something. So that was my plan, which is something I actually injected into the script here. They really would want to meet up with the thing. They'd want to make some money. Kids always want to make some money, and that's what I did with this crate. And also, now here we go. This was one of the ugliest swamps ever. And another tribute, I would mention his name a million times. Rob King came in and made the swamp gorgeous. And, of course, Heather contributed to that. And we put flowers everywhere. And Jourdan, of course, shot it with a kind of a mist. And this was supposed to be the love scene between Heather and Swampy. And I got here and I really kind of did not know what to do. Here was a giant swamp creature, and we had Heather, who was not going to do a love scene with Swamp Thing. So we had to figure out something to do, and I spoke to all concerned. We brought in one of the stuntmen on the show to play a sort of good-looking version of Swamp Thing. When I figured, okay, Swamp Thing's got all kinds of herbs and potuses on his body, so why not pull a tuber and use it as sort of a magic mushroom? And I had to couch it carefully because I didn't want anybody to get the wrong idea, but it still ended up getting a couple laughs when it ran theatrically. And when we panned up, we actually dissolved to more of a misty filter and came back down. I forgot this gentleman's name, but Heather was not too pleased about doing this scene with this guy. She wanted to actually do it with Dick DeRock. Dick DeRock didn't want to get out of the Swamp Thing because it just took an hour and a half to do so. So I convinced her to go with this guy, and we did it. We did it kind of in a nice, misty Hallmark card kind of way, and it ended up being okay. I mean, we didn't belabor it. I think I do a little stop motion, a little step framing here and there, and Chuck's love theme playing behind it really sells the moment. And of course we pan back down, and it's all been a dream, or has it? And love has been consummated between Swampy and Heather.
As real as you want it to be.
And she is happy about it. All right. I finally convinced Louis to kind of mock himself a little bit. Everybody else was doing it here, and we had named the parrot Gigi after one of Louis's big hit films for MGM, probably one of his biggest films ever. And in this scene, he actually does a parody of the song he sang in Gigi.
Am I a fool without a mind? Or have I merely been too blind to realize that I'm dealing with two idiots?
Yes, sir.
Probably his best moment in the picture. And here's Ace Mask, Mr. Mad Scientist, Tony Caesar, and a couple of other people here. And Ace is trying to figure out if she'd look good with fins. Of course, he's just ad-libbing to the max here. And to Lightyear's credit, they would see the dailies and make comments to me, but always with a nice approval. They liked a lot of the ad-libbing that the actors were doing. They thought the film was coming along well. This film was not made for a big budget. I think the original Swamp Thing had a bigger budget, even though this looks bigger. This had a very kind of a small budget. And it was a tribute to Lightyear, Rob King, Zoran Hochstetter, a number of other people who actually went the extra mile to make these sets and make the picture look so good. And this new 16:9 transfer kind of really gives the film the look I really originally intended to get. I shot this film actually with a 185 hard mat. So when they did the original video edition in 1989 over at Columbia TriStar, they had to do a pan scan on it. Even though it was a flat film, it required a pan scan to get the full frame onto TV. And when you push in on something like that, it really goes kind of soft. Again, the swamp was not as pretty as this at all. But thanks to Zoran's filters and great grading filters and everything, it was heaven. It looked like heaven on film. The smoke, the flowers, the colors. I mean, he was out there in the morning spray painting yellow flowers and making the leaves look like it was fall. It's truly amazing how he created a storybook swamp out of something that was not so pretty. I got to the set one day early, and before all the crew and cast got there, and there was a rowboat out in the Uncle Shed's, and I took a boat out into this swamp, and it was very haunting to be out in this swamp, even in the daytime, looking around and finding old gravestones with markers from 1800 and before, like 1823, 1826, and all you could read was the actual date, the names, and what was said on the gravestone had been washed away by, decades of rain and exposure to the elements. I got back from the boat, got up on the shore, and somebody had just pulled into the fishing camp with a little poodle. And the little poodle was barking at the edge of the water, and suddenly a gator came up and took that poodle home for lunch. It was the most astonishing thing I ever saw. It looked like it was done with the speed of light. And I felt sorry for the family it happened to, but I realized, oh my God, these things are here, and they're dangerous, and they can be deadly. And of course, here are these two kids. They are looking for Swamp Thing to take that picture. Little Danny has eaten all the good candy and ho-hos and Twinkies and everything, and left only an apple for Enrico, which is upsetting. No kid wants to eat an apple when he could eat a ho-ho. Danny here was in Road Trip, which came out a couple of years ago, I guess, and he's still doing some acting down in Alabama where he lives. All these orchids and chrysanthemums and all these flowers were flown in daily to be put up in here. They're all real flowers for the most part, and they would be brought in from Atlanta, certain places driven in, and they'd come in early in the morning, and Rob and his boys would go out to the swamp and fix it up. Here comes my tribute to the old action movie Walking Tall. Joey Segal here, who plays Mr. Obnoxious in this film, is treating these kids very, very, very badly. He's stealing the little kid's camera. He's eating their apples. He's eating their food. And, Joey hated doing this. He was really a nice guy. He says, "Do you really want me to do this to these kids?" And he did a really, really kind of a special job setting himself up for the fall here. But these guys behind him are all top stunt guys. And when he takes this whack to the face, it was a lot of fun. And again, rather than see Swamp Thing always just punching people, I had him grab the kid's baseball bat and go wild. This scene is almost pure ad-lib with the kids. The only thing I had to get across was that they had the lens cap on. But little Danny here is just so enthusiastic about getting his picture taken with Swampy that all this seems real to him. And he was only 7 or 8 at the time, and really kind of fell in love with Swamp Thing. So when he makes these little moves here, he says, he kicks the bat. He actually says "thank you" here, and you can hardly hear it, but he was just in awe of this big creature. I spoke to him just last week, and again, he sends me a picture almost every Christmas from his mom and him, and just to say hello and ask how things are. And I told him they were doing the DVD of Swamp Thing. He's a big computer nerd like I am, and we've been sending emails back and forth, and he's still a good guy. Grew up to be a nice guy. Now, a word of warning to all directors and all stunt people who ever work with a airboat. don't. Just don't. These things are the most unpredictable, horrible things that ever have gone, they're uncontrollable. So we had a big problem here. You can see where when they're going on about 2 miles an hour like this, they're okay. But once they get going, there's no way to stop them. And as you see, there was a big wave that washed over it here. When it turned around, we had to cut away quickly and then redo this portion here. This is the area where I also shot 2 public service announcements for Green Earth. There was a situation where they wanted to have Swamp Thing talk about keeping the planet clean, and we kind of ad-libbed 2 TV promotional spots for the Green Earth people, and I never personally saw them until about a year later when one ran at 4 o'clock in the morning where I live in Los Angeles. It was I was watching some late movie or something, and all of a sudden it came on. It's kind of fun to see it. And I believe they're included here on the DVD.
I'll join you in a moment. Find Rochelle.
The reason we built this big house rather than just rent it was because the script called for it to blow up. And I'm a firm believer if you build it, you have to blow it. Now here's something. We did this scene basically because we were short. They needed like 91 minutes or 92 minutes for their international version. And when the film came in at 88, they said, well, shoot another extra scene with Joey and Monique. And we shot this, and it's where they compare scars and things. I think we cut back outside, but when they come back to them, they're comparing scars. It's a scene that later got taken and done again by the Lethal Weapon people. Well, we did it first.
I'm sorry, I can't. There's nothing I can do. There's simply no escape. He killed my mother, didn't he? Rochelle did.
Here's the case where I said, Heather, put something really hot on for this scene. She says, I've been wearing hot stuff the whole damn picture. I refused to put another nightie on. I said, okay, all right. And she said, let me at least let me wear something comfortable that doesn't show everything. I said, okay. And she'd been so accommodating up to that point that I just said, put this little pink outfit on. And she did. Again, this is another case where we had the laboratory, and I said, well, eventually I'm going to have Bob Shelley, who's done all these big special effects pictures. He's a practical effects guy. He is one of the top guys in his field of blowing things up. And he spent, I believe, an entire morning rigging this place with explosives, and then we blew it all to hell. This is the scene where they do compare scars, which I'm not saying it was stolen, but somebody must have seen this picture over at Warner Brothers. I swear to God. Because this whole thing was just lifted and done, I think, by the Lethal Weapon guys. But I have copied so many other great pictures that a thief who steals from a thief is pardoned for 1,000 years. And that's the way I look at it.
Excuse me. Doesn't anybody knock around here?
Comes the old Three Stooges gag. I had to do it. Except they didn't put the good kabonk on their head. That was the only take of that shot, and there was some sort of film flare on it, but I left it in. I said, well, we'll put a lightning bolt on it. It'll seem like a storm lightning. So they left it in.
Begging your pardon, Doc. This stuff is for Nancy boys. Besides, I got my own toys.
Think about what you're doing.
I am. You're about to experience a unique feeling. You're going to be part of what gives life.
To you.
To me. For a good cause.
Louis refused to call Monique by her name. She was called Miss Poinsettia, and everybody used to call her Points. And he came to me and says, "I will not call her Points. That has a lot of sexual innuendo." I said, "Come on, Louis. Her name is Poinsettia. You're calling her Points." No. This is going to be very taken as a sexual innuendo. At which point I opened my big mouth and I said, "Weren't you in a film called Octopussy?" And of course that just ticked him off royal, and I lost about 10 brownie points and got 2 demerits. But he finished the picture. Comes one of my favorite cues that Chuck did for the movie, the zapping of life here. It's sort of a big, crazy thing. It's very cartoony, but in a film like this, it kind of gets by you. Because you couldn't ever do this today. You'd be laughed off the screen if you did this today. But, you know, back then, and with all the other stuff going on in this picture, people accept it. While I was making this picture, I was also writing Beastmaster 2, which I think went into production soon after we finished this show. I actually left this show for a weekend to come back here to LA for the premiere of Not of This Earth in Los Angeles. We had a big premiere with Tracy Lords and a number of other people, and I just couldn't miss it. It was like we held it over at 20th Century Fox. Lightyear did also did a premiere for this in New York and here in LA, but they were small premieres. They weren't anything like the Not of This Earth premiere. This Jeep never worked. That's one shot. If you look carefully in the back here, on your DVD here, you can actually see the shoulder of somebody pushing this vehicle. There's a little white shirt behind them there. And it was just an atrocious vehicle. Luckily, we got it to work twice. And I was so happy to see this thing blown to hell. It was just a terrible thing. Vehicles can cost you so much time on a set. You know, you're just, you know, if it starts and works, that's fine. But if it doesn't, and you're married to the vehicle because you've seen it in other scenes, well, you just have to live with it and make it work somehow. So I believe that was myself and someone else pushing that vehicle for that scene. Again, now Louis refused to have makeup on, and he was supposed to look younger and everything, but he didn't want to have his hair dyed or anything like that, and so this scene doesn't work as well as it could have. We did the stuff on his hand that kind of showed that it hadn't worked, and it had worked in reverse, because he hardly looks any different here than he did when he got on that machine. But he absolutely stood fast to his thing about not putting any other special makeup on. And it's tough because, you know, he's come from a long list of credits, and I know they paid him a lot to do this because he was in the first one, and they couldn't make this one without him. I hated to kill Sarah Douglas, but the script demanded it. You had to hate Louis just a little bit more for doing this. And of course, Dick DeRock, Swamp Thing to the rescue. It's a little too late, though. Heather Locklear is dead. Sarah Douglas is dead. And the one person you want to have be dead is alive. Even with all the makeup on, you can see that Dick is totally angry here about the fact that Louis has taken Heather out of the picture. Stuntman, of course. And here comes Rex Pearson. Saw him before, but now he's dressed up like the Dr. Rochelle mutation. And off he goes. Anybody who's a big fan of the Outer Limits will know where I got the idea for this creature. I loved that show when I was growing up, and I said, well, bring me something like the Outer Limits. And the makeup guys really came through. They delivered a top-notch monster. You see the head kind of bounce back and forth a little bit because these guys are really going at it. I don't know how they survived this thing, because these guys are really kicking butt through this whole thing. I want to have him throw the whole thing into a... He had to jump off a platform to get in there, but we had it all set up. And then, of course, the motion optics people jump in and start all the crazy lightning and electrodes going crazy. And this place is going up. It is going up. Jourdan Hochster hitting the color button, maxing it out. We've all seen this scene before, but there's only like 2 minutes to detonation. He shouldn't be doing anything but getting his butt out of there, but he's got to commiserate. And Dick did a nice job there. A little sadness from him. He did a really sweet job with this role, especially under all that makeup. I believe this is the only piece of profanity in the movie, and I don't know how I let it slip in. He says, oh shit here, or something. If I had to do over, I'd go back and fix it, but it's been a while. By the time this comes out, I'll be 15 years old. But that's a while back. It's amazing how Heather Locklear almost looks the same today. Bob Shelley is hitting that explosive big time. He's got this whole place rigged. I mean, there's a piece of explosive under almost every piece of fiberglass in that place, and we all had to run for our lives when this stuff went off. The interior here, I mean, every animal, bug, bird that was in this big hangar headed for the hills when this place exploded. And then when we blew up the house portion on the outside, the explosion was heard for about 25 miles away. People who had their cars parked anywhere near that house had damage. This place is going up like a tinderbox. We were all outside. Again, the fire was, mammoth here. We had the fire's actually dying down because we started with a big fire, and then the glue would start to go down, wear down. And the fire would go smaller. But during all these explosions here, we were all outside hearing all these massive kabooms, and it was pretty amazing. Here comes a big explosion. I was about a quarter of a mile away when that happened, and it still was mammoth. Things flew through the air for at least a quarter of a mile. Stuff came down. Maybe 30 seconds after the explosion, stuff was still raining down. Here's one of my favorite shots in the picture. It took a while to set up. The smoke had to be just right. I just wanted this scene of Swamp Thing carrying his dead love off into the swamp. And Jourdan took a while shooting it, but boy, it looked good. And of course, we need a happy ending. And here it comes. I want to make sure everybody got what they wanted. In the original Swamp Thing, Swampy had brought Adrienne Barbeau back to life, so I figured, okay, here's the power. If he did it once, he can do it twice. And so we have him bring Adrienne Barbeau's power back here and revive Heather Locklear.
Alec, you brought me back, didn't you?
You brought me back. Well, yes, he did. And they wanted even a happier ending. She gets up here, and when she gets up, she gets up on another day. I'll show you. The kids, of course, get their photo of Swampy. They're all talking about what they're going to get: Corvettes and Mercedes and all kinds of stuff. They've already got the money spent. Anyway, cutting back to them, Lightyear wanted to reshoot the ending. So when she gets up here, she raises out of one frame, and you can tell when she gets up in the next frame, it's a different time and a different place. Her hair is all done up perfect, and they wanted to look perfect for this shot. So we did it again. This is actually a reverse shot. We had the flower in a side piece of thing and pulled it in, and then reversed the film and let the flower grow out of her foot. That's actually a comic book cover, and I figured it would be the perfect way to end the movie. A little recap. There, of course, is the Louis Jourdan and Heather. I want to thank everybody who were watching. I hope you're drinking beer and eating popcorn and have enjoyed this presentation of Swamp Thing. Return of Swamp Thing, that is. Stay tuned for the little super epilogue with the two kids, which we shot. I think it was the first thing we ever shot. I put the two kids in front of the photomat and said, ad-lib something in front of the photomat like you left the lens cap on. And it wasn't in the script, but they did it, and I didn't know where to put it, so I left it after the credits. Or I think I have a credit start and then start goes down. You'll see. Anyway, Jim Wynorski, see you next time. Have a great one, and I'll see you soon.